is tremendous tonight. Scott McCulloch, and next to me, Craig Bell.
I'm here. So
there he is.
I'm here and I'm not here. I'm just checking the feed over on Facebook right now to make sure that I want to see what I want to see.
A couple last-minute things, and then Craig will get this started with a theme song.
Yeah.
Scott, you feeling good tonight?
Yeah, feeling very good. Very excited with all the U.S. Open action today.
Love it. So happy you've joined us tonight. I know this has been a few months in the making. You and Craig talked a little bit, and I'm so happy he's booked a guest like you tonight. Craig, you look ready.
We are live right now. We are ready to go.
Let's get this podcast started.
All right, Jimmy Campbell, here we go.
Friends, to another episode of the At the Net podcast, powered by Tex-Mex Productions. Working the soundboards in the back of the house are our producers, D-Mac and Dave the Brain. Time to say hello to your hosts, Craig Bell and AJ Shabria, as they're about to take us through 3 sets of tennis, talking life and all the news as it seems to them. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Bell.
All right. And that is thanks to our At the Net podcast girl, the always ever convivial Margot Carter, right?
That she is.
For that ripper. It's a ripper.
That was a ripper.
Ripper. Introduction. That's the word of the night. In honor of our guest. Word of the night. Introduction. And welcome, fans of the great game. You're listening to Season 1, Episode 128. We're in the 128 column right now. Do you know where the 128 is? I don't know. Is that a area code somewhere in the U.S., 128?
I believe they all start with twos.
Twos, threes, fours?
Twos, yeah.
I didn't know about 128. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I like it.
You usually know everything, so why don't you know that? Of At the Net podcast with AJ Chabry, right?
That's right me, and to my right, the great Craig Bell.
We were talking the great game of tennis tonight.
As it seems to us.
Thanks also go out to our good amigos at Tex-Mex Productions. That'd be one Darian D. Mac McBrayer and Dave the Brain. We didn't see the Brain tonight, unfortunately.
You handled it all. You're producing.
We got lucky, on the Zoom. They didn't ask for the password, and so I must have was nice to it, talked nice to it. But, the Brain's probably around somewhere. And we usually say from back of the house on the soundboard, but I'm actually moving the buttons and the dials and not holograms like John Yandel says we can't afford, right?
That's right.
All right. Also, be sure to like and follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Plus, check out our good work on Fireside, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor Breaker, CastBox, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Spotify. I did it again. Man,
all 10.
I'm getting good at this right there.
Yeah.
That's all the important communication sites the kids find popular in the podcasting world, right?
That is right. And you did it in one breath, which is my way to test you for COVID every week.
That's right. Yeah, I sound better.
Yeah,
I sound good.
Your lungs are good, man.
And if you'd like to be like the convivial Margot Carter and read the opening intro, she's going to be hard to knock off the podium. You hit AJ up on some digits, right?
Yeah, send me your demo tape and all that on any of our channels, Facebook or Instagram.
So speaking of our guest this evening is certainly a good tennis mate. He's the great Scott McCulloch. Scotty, how you doing there, buddy? It's good to see you.
I'm great. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's great to be here.
What a pleasure. Yeah. We are so proud to have you. You are the Chief Operating Officer at Cliff Drysdale Tennis, and Cliff's name, his name comes up all the time when we talk about commentating, broadcasting, which Craig and I do some of that too. And he's always on the list along with Fred Stolle as, kind of on the Mount Rushmore for our tennis. Yeah.
I just wondered, do you get to call him Cliffy or do you call him Cliff? Because Mary Jo Fernandez always calls him Cliffy. All the girls on at the U.S. Open at Wimbledon, they go, Cliffy. They call him Cliffy. So I didn't know if Scott would if you get that opportunity to call him Cliffy or you just call him Cliff or Mr. Drysdale or.
I'm always humbled to be around him, so I call him Mr. Drysdale. And then he sort of gives me a bit of a verbal abuse and tells me to call him Cliffy. So
Cliffy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He keeps it always humble and informal, and he's such an easygoing, great guy. So yeah.
He is, and there's always a buzz around him where everybody is respectful and loving. I know I played in a pro-am, and he was commentating and watching, and he was such a presence. And you just played better when you were within 90 feet of the guy. He's just a tremendous guy.
Yeah. No, he's it's hard to explain what it is, but he has that, and he's just got that presence around. And it's a good thing you did play better, because if you did not, he would let you know about it.
I think he laughed at some stupid shot that I luckily made.
Yeah.
It was like I was sliding backwards, it was on hard true, and I made a drop while going backwards, and he acknowledged that it was a stupid shot selection, but the bloke made it, you know. So I think he was a little bit proud of me. So that was fun. Hey, let's get to you, man. First set, Scott. We got to talk about. I want to learn about how you got started in racket sports in general back in Australia.
Yeah, so as a kid, you play all the sports when you're in Australia. Very sporty nation, Australia. Primarily, I grew up in Sydney, Australia, so everything was very water-based, whether we were at the beach and my primary sport as a kid was swimming. And I was a big swimmer. And the reason for that was I had bad asthma as a kid. So one of the big things, as soon as you have asthma as a kid, every doctor tells you to put the kid in swimming because it helps build your lung capacity. And most of the famous Australian swimmers on the Olympic team, that's how they got into swimming as well, outside of learning how to swim because it's good. You live near the beaches. It was good for asthma. And I did that for a bunch of years. And then I got to one point where I got sick of waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning to go swim. And Mum had a friend that worked at the local tennis shop. And she said, well, you've got to play a year-round sport because you play your seasonal sports with soccer, basketball, what have you. So she said, you want to try tennis? And I said, what do I have to do? She said, you have to turn up on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock and go to a class. And I said, so I don't have to get up at early in the morning? And she said, no. I said, great, let's go to tennis. And started in some group lessons and took some privates, and was very fortunate to have a really good tennis professional that was really balanced, and then spent the holidays at summer camps and all of that because both parents worked. And then it's just sort of took on a life of its own.
That's tremendous. A great professional and good programming with attractive times. That's something you are probably using as part of your formula all the way now, decades later as a management expert in the racket sports industry. Tell us how you, not just how you started, but now, if you could, get into how you got accomplished as a tennis player.
Sure. So that was sort of the start of it. And then I started playing for school. I went to a private school, made the school team. I kept with all the training and then started playing tournaments and played juniors right throughout. Was nationally ranked as a junior. I became very good at a certain level. Then I was fortunate enough to meet the new family. Clint Newcomb actually came to where I was playing at, and then I started teaching when I was 15 as well, because I started breaking strings. So I got a stringer. So I could take care of the rackets I needed to string. And then also I started teaching when I was 15. And the first lesson I gave was a challenging one because it was a young kid and we didn't know whether he was right-handed or left-handed. So we got to the end of the half hour and the head coach said, well, how do you think that went? I said, terrible. I still don't even know if he's right-handed or left-handed. I couldn't figure it out. So I kept playing, then came over here to the States, to the great state of Texas, to the John Newcomb Tennis Academy when I was roughly about 19 or 20. And I trained with a lot of the academy kids there and was on what they called at that time like a work play. So I would sort of train with the kids through the week and help out a couple of the adults on the weekend. And that's sort of where I met one of Craig's really good friends, Jerome Millet.
Oh, I love Jerome. Yeah, Coach Jome, as they call him.
Coach Jome. Yep.
Yeah. So, and I just kept playing, and that's sort of where it all sort of sat for me. And I went out and played in France and Germany and played some money tournaments and some satellites out there. And that was a great experience. I ended up spending 3 months in a tent in France, sort of traveling around, just living off whatever we made and playing some local tournaments or some national tournaments there, which was quite an experience. And came back and then sort of just continued then to start into.
That is the best. That traveling, I know Craig got to do a little bit of that. I certainly did too. And what a blast, just, particularly in such tennis mad nations like Germany and France.
Yeah, it taught me so much about myself, and it really helped develop me as a person, because I got to learn to rely on myself, because you have to work through problems out there on the court. Different scenarios come up. So I really liked the problem-solving aspect to it, and it was great. And some of my best friends are all the ones from tennis. I mean, they're still the mates that I have from 20, 30 years. So
if you were like me, there were problems off the court too, like that train or that hotel or that tournament desk or whatever. So you get a master's in problem solving quickly, even if it's just 1 or 2 semesters out there.
And I started to learn a little French, and I was hitchhiking between tournaments. And I knew about enough French to get us about 10 minutes down the road before they figured out we didn't know it anymore. And then they kicked us out. So then you'd have to wait for the next guy to pick you up. And
so funny.
To get you a little, yeah, but it was great. It was some of the best times of my life.
So fun. That's great. And when was that? Was that the early 2000s or mid 2000s?
Yeah, sort of that 99 to 2001 time frame.
Oh, tremendous. I'm so glad you got that experience and got to do it. Let's head to our second set now that our listeners have gotten to know you a little bit. You and Craig and I emailed a bit and got a few fun talking points going. Of course, we'll have even more fun in the third set. But right now, I want our listeners to learn as much as they can from you. You're a young man who's vaulted to, I would say, an industry-leading position with one of the biggest management companies. Let's start off with something a little spicy and talk a little bit about racket sports in general, tennis, pickleball, padel. Sometimes tennis people, particularly tennis purists, see pickleball as I know Craig and I feel this way, as a remarkable number 2 sport. Some purists also see it as an existential threat, tennis in general. So tell us your view on tennis, pickleball, and please include platform tennis, paddle, whatever you like in there. Yeah, squash.
Yeah, I actually played a bit of squash. That was what I used to play with my dad back home.
Love that game.
He'd play with a mate, and I'd always wait for him to finish his game, and I'd get 5 or 10 minutes at the end. And yeah, squash was a great one for fitness for tennis players in the off season. I mean, because you're working and moving your feet in squash. But I think I'll always have tennis as my number 1 love in racket sports. I think that's very much firmly implanted. And I'd say probably about 8 years ago, I was on the bandwagon where I was knocking down other racket sports. And if I saw pickleball emerging, I would share with a club owner or a resort owner that it was because they didn't have a good tennis program, a good calendar of events or what have you. But then I really think I was smart enough to realize to take a good look at it and understand what people love about it and sit and listen and learn. And then I started getting more and more into it, started talking to more people in racket sports. And pickleball was the first one coming along. And I do feel when I have a lot of conversations, sometimes it's controversial with some people because they're still in that purist and they've held that. I think it's more of an evolving. I think all racket sports need each other because it creates stickiness in clubs. It creates options for people to stay members of clubs or try new things or get exposed, because tennis is not an easy sport to pick up. So we lose a lot of people in tennis. And I think pickleball starts to introduce people to racket sports. It starts to get them having fun. And then I think it can, over time, build a bridge to tennis. A lot of tennis pros right now see it as a threat because they feel like they're losing people. So I do think that is a threat. I think a lot of tennis players are worried about tennis courts going away and not pickleballs being built exclusively for pickleball. But I think with the big word is sort of the Serena word of the week, if you will. It's evolve. It's got to evolve. I think they need each other. My wife is a great example of that. Played tennis, didn't really take to it as much. But now we go out and we play pickleball on Sunday afternoon because she never played racket sports as a kid. So her learning curve and the ability to play pickleball is just instant. And I think that's going to help people come to tennis. The one thing that's always a big conversation starter for me, and it's sometimes a controversial conversation, is I think too many clubs don't have grassroots programs for tennis. We cater too much to the current player, the 3-0, 3-5, 4-0 and above. And I think that's a big bridge we've got to make sure that we build in there is pickleball gets people playing immediately. And tennis, you cannot do that. So if we have pickleball, then good intro tennis programs, I do think people will feed through. And like I said earlier, I think it's great, the stickiness, because it gives people options to stay at a club. And now you throw that mix in there, you mentioned padel. We've got a few clubs that we've put padel in. So for those who have not seen padel, it's same thing, super exciting. Look, it's probably between tennis and pickleball and the learning scale, but I think it's really fun and cool to a lot of the youth because, you've got the big glass walls and synthetic grass, AstroTurf court, and people are bouncing off walls, and it's sort of like squash where you can play off the back wall, and it adds just a new element to it. I think it's going to take some time for it to pick up momentum like pickleball, but I think all of those three together starts to build up a bigger mass for racket sports to have a presence in clubs and standalone clubs and really keep people in America fit and healthy and social, because organically they're social sports. And we've seen in certain places, we've got the Ritz-Carlton in Key Biscayne. We've got three padel courts down there. Hugely popular. I mean, booked out 24/7. And then we just put a few in Texas at in a club in Austin, the Polo Club. And same thing, wildly successful. So there's a bit more of a price tag to building padel courts. But I think as they start to get a little bit more momentum, it's going to become very, very, very popular. But I'm a big believer in all ships rise with the tide. And we have very firmly said that we are a racket sports company, not a tennis company. Even though we're tennis at heart, I think all racket sports are going to be important for us.
Scott, well said. I want to dig a little deeper into that word when you said how social all of these racket sports are. Mm-hmm. If you don't mind my adding, COVID safe as well, but social. And you use that word stickiness. Tell us what you mean by stickiness. Is that in terms of events or in terms of crossover between the sports?
Yeah, I think stickiness for me is engagement at a club, because now all of a sudden it's another sport you can play. If you go through a phase where you're not really into tennis, you can pick up some pickleball, or vice versa, or play one game of tennis a week, one game of pickleball. So it just creates ways that people can continue to engage to racket sports. And, quote a little Australian, it's like they boomerang in and out of them. Everyone goes through a little phase where they've got something new. And I think that's what a lot of tennis players are doing right now with pickleball. I think they're going to return to it. They're just trying something new. And it's got a very big organic social momentum. Everything you're seeing in pickleball is coming off Facebook groups, people at the park, people pulling so much organically together. And it's been very inclusive with a lot of levels. Now, same like tennis, now people are wanting to play level-based because it is a bit of the Wild West out there. But I think it has brought a lot of people to racket sports. And I think if we play it right, those will become people that would like to get into a tennis 101 program. Will start to try tennis out because they'll find it can be just as social as what pickleball is.
Really is, yeah. And Craig and I have both guested on a few other podcasts, particularly tennis and pickleball ones. And one of the pickleball ones, the point came up that sometimes tennis players, I don't want to play pickleball, it'll ruin my tennis. And it just reminded me of growing up in the 70s here in the States, how much I loved squash. when you couldn't get on a tennis court in the winter or whatever it is, bad weather or whatever, outdoor, and racquetball, squash, and racquetball seemed to be back then the existential threat to tennis, and people were so fragile, like, oh, I can't use that little racket, or I get so wristy and it ruins my tennis. And one of the points I wanted to make is I don't want to be that fragile where once a week pickleball is going to ruin my tennis, or once a week squash is going to hurt my. There's no way. I love them all. Even table tennis, like everybody plays some table tennis at some point, right? Or badminton or something. And does it really ruin your tennis? I don't think so. You know?
Yeah, you don't play. I mean, how many houses across America have a table tennis table in the basement, and you're playing family battles, and it's a family event, maybe like Labor Day, and you get into like a marathon. Everyone plays everyone. You don't think that's ruining tennis when you go to play your match?
No way.
3 days later.
I think they're always nice complementary, sports. I mean, tennis, if you look at it, if you saw that Serena match, a couple nights ago, holy smokes. I mean, Ash was like 25,000 people there, and I'm not disparaging pickleball. They'll get 2,000. I think that's a big deal. Well, Ash had 25 in it, and there were probably another 40 out there on the grounds. I mean, there were 60,000 people milling around the Open, and I was like, that's going to take a while for. Pickleball is gaining. I mean, no question that. I love to play pickleball, and I like pickleball, but I think we got to tap the brakes a little bit on the popularity because there's no Ash in pickleball right now. There's Armstrong or a facility. I mean, they played Indian Wells. I know it's a huge participant sport, and they'll get 4,000 or 5,000 people out there, and probably another 4 walking around and watching what's going on. But hey, come on, let's have a reality-based check. I think USTA is setting records this year. I've been reading. I don't know if you all have seen those same stats that the Open is setting records on a daily basis. So that's we're still pretty healthy.
And you're talking attendance, not to mention double-digit increase in ratings.
Yes, exactly. Now, I mean, Serena was good, for the Open, for a couple of times, and just didn't play well. We knew that the glass slipper had to break eventually, and it wasn't. I didn't think she would win even a couple of matches. I'm surprised she got as far as she did, and she played well, and it was nice to. We were talking. I think that who was I talking to the other day? I said, how many times is she going to cry and for how long? So that she's going to break down, and she did. I mean,
all the sports books had an over/under on that.
Yeah, like 15 minutes. Okay, here we go. Right there. But anyway, sorry, I diverted.
No, it was.
Here's our.
I was there for that match on Monday night, opening night. And it was awesome. It was electric. It was electric. I mean, you could, until you're actually in Arthur Ashe Stadium, you don't really feel how big it is.
Yeah.
And you're right. Everyone was outside watching the big Jumbotron. And,
it was a scene. It was a happening. I mean, when they flew that drone over or whatever they're using for a camera, I was like, good grief. I mean, it was like shoulder to shoulder, people walking around, sitting there. I mean, they were all having a great time. And like I said, I'm not trying to disparage pickleball whatsoever because I like it. I mean, I enjoy pickleball, but is tennis dead? No, it's far from it. And I think that the pickleball folks like, hey, tap the brakes here a little bit. And your interest is great because going through the pickleball boom, it's been fun to watch this thing in action and to be a part of this thing. But at the same time, it's got a long way to go to have the attendance, the eyes, the viewership on pickleball versus the great game. I mean, and we call both of them the great game.
Yeah,
they're fun. Racquetball's great and squash and all that kind of stuff. I enjoy all those. But go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
I think you bring up a good point. I think people are trying to put them in the same conversation. They're at different stages, and it's just like a stage, not age. So they're at different stages of development. Tennis is growing, and it's got a history, it's got a presence, it's got a spot in American sports history, and it's very ingrained. And I think pickleball is just at a different stage. It's very much it's exciting because it's in its starting phase. Tennis is very established, and I think you're right. I don't know how many conversations I've had with pickleball players or tennis players, and they both sides get angry because you can't compare it because tennis has got 24 million and then the pickleball, no, this is the fastest growing sport. And I just think there's a great spot for both of them. And I think if they're both aligned, they just keep bringing more people to racket sports. And it keeps bringing the importance of clubs having courts at their club, whether it's a country club, a public facility, what have you. I think they both play an important phase. And pickleball is going to go through a lot of exciting firsts in the next 10 years. You know, tennis has got a lot of exciting things to look forward to. And you're right. And watching, 25,000 people in a stadium like Arthur Ashe, it's incredibly exciting. They're just different sports at different ages and stages, but they do help each other.
Yeah, I was thinking, also too, while you were talking there, I'm a tennis pro at a country club. We do this kind of as a side hustle, right, AJ? Or do we do this to make money? We really we've had a great time with what we do.
You keep thinking we're not making money. I'll just make the money.
Oh, okay. Then maybe he's got the money. But I would have never met about a dozen people if it weren't for the pickleball course.
Absolutely
They would have not made their way over from, we have a main club and then we have the tennis club. They're about 100 yards apart. But these people wouldn't have come over here and played some pickleball. Now we have 3 dedicated courts. We set up courts behind us. All the courts have little Sharpie marks. We can tape a court up in about 5 minutes, put the net up, and 10 minutes they're playing. But the point being, there's a lot of good things that go along with this sport that's coming up in its infancy, is like what you're saying. It's just in the early stages of what's taking place. So I think you're right. I think that it's a really good complementary piece to tennis, more so than I think racquetball. Racquetball, was back in the 80s, trying to compare racquetball to tennis. It just wasn't the same. But we're out on a tennis court playing pickleball and then tennis at the same time. So we took up the tape this afternoon. We left the court up. And now you're ready for tennis in the morning. But it's a really good complementary, I think, a sport as opposed to really one that pushes people away. I think you can do both. That's just me. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. No, I think two points I'd sort of share to that. I think you're absolutely right. I think if people get into pickleball and then if they can find that introductory program for tennis, they're going to start getting to tennis and they'll find a love for both. And they'll find a spot and a group of people that'll sort of fill a need and they'll enjoy both. I think that's something that we need to, in the rackets industry, if those who sit on both sides of it, make sure we've got that complementary piece going in. And I think the interesting thing with pickleball, but where it's going to run into a lot of hurdles, tennis has history and it's got a bit of a North Star. There's a general direction of where everyone's starting to move towards and people operate clubs, facilities, what have you, in and out of that scope. I think pickleball does not have that yet. I mean, you've got 2 tours, you've got 2 rating systems, you've got all these different multiples. And I think that's going to be something they're going to have to work on to get a little bit of that North Star, because people are it's very splintered right now. And, rather than trying to bring everyone and group them together.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. I like that.
Almost like a multi-filament string. It stays together and stronger if we get the multi-filaments together.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
Makes good sense. Thanks for that very thoughtful look at at all the racket sports. I like how you said it. Rising tide lifts all boats, and except maybe the leaky boats, and we all want to be not the leaky boat, right?
Don't want to be on the Titanic, do we?
We don't want to be that guy, yeah. So, hey, let's go to the second segment of the second set. Scott, I'd love if you could tell the people at home a little bit about what is Cliff Drysdale Tennis. How does it relate to rest in peace, God rest his soul, Peter Burwash International, which is a company I think we've all heard of, and Troon, which sounds like such a Scottish golf company. Yep. Tell us about the relationship between these 3 entities and what you guys do as the current project, but also the future projects.
Sure. Probably a little bit about each company. Peter Burwash International, as you mentioned, Mr. Burwash, we lost him last month, and it's been great to see how many people are celebrating his life and how many people are sort of sharing really nice stories in and out of our company, just in the industry as a whole, about the difference he made. And he started a tennis management company 47 years ago. So they were really the biggest tennis management company in the world. They operate a lot of resorts internationally, a lot here in the States, but also all across the world. And they had probably roughly about 30 or so clubs and contracts. So more of a tennis management. Cliff Drysdale Tennis, which was started by Cliff Drysdale and Don Henderson, started in the early 2000s. Same thing. It started at Key Biscayne, a little bit of a club there. It started with a couple of courts and a shed. And, they started to build up a good base there. And the Ritz general manager said, I think you guys should start a company. So they started a company, and they really started to grow. Then picked up a few clubs, and so really we've grown over the years as well. And up to the point where we were introduced to Troon, we had about 35 clubs as well that we manage, more so domestically in the States, but a couple internationally, and all different shapes and sizes. Some private clubs, resorts, public facilities, seasonal clubs, a bit of everything there. And then Troon works into it because Troon's the largest golf management company in the world. Sorry about the noise. Guard dog.
That's all right.
Taking care of everything.
Right.
Troon works into it because about 4 years ago, they started some conversations. We were looking to collaborate with Troon. And Troon, they operate about 600 clubs worldwide. I mean, they're enormous. And they were like, we really like you guys, and we really want a rackets specialist within our group of companies that we have here. So Troon purchased Cliff Drysdale Tennis right about 4 and a bit years ago. And it was great. I mean, it's been fantastic, a great relationship ever since. And then Peter Burwash, Troon purchased Peter Burwash International in December of 2021. So now we had both Peter Burwash and Cliff Drysdale Tennis with our parent company, Troon. And so that's really brought us to about 63 locations in 13 countries around the world. And it's been fantastic. I mean, a couple of their leadership, Renee Zondog and Jeff Henkelman, came over with the transition, and it's like we've known each other for years. It's just been it's a working transition as we still go through learning more about them and them us, but it's been amazing. And Troon's been just a great parent to have. And to tell you the truth, it was great having them, particularly through COVID, because they allowed us to, even when we were shutting down clubs, still keep our staff on board so that we could continue to support clubs as they started to open up. So that's a little bit of the relationship and how it all looks. And we're just one big racket sports family in the golf management world.
Tremendous, tremendous. And you mentioned COVID briefly. How has that affected golf and racket sports? And how can people sort of take advantage of the negatives and turn them into positives?
Yeah. I think that that was an interesting time for all of us. I mean, a lot of clubs throughout the country all shut down, some in certain states for longer periods than others. Tennis, pickleball, all racket sports and golf, they benefit from that because, like you said, it was outside, it was safe, it was social distance. I mean, a tennis court gives you about 7,000 square feet, so you can definitely get a few people on the court there. And so it really spiked. I mean, 2020, as we came back, was a really good year, but 2021 was an anomaly. I think every club across the country just saw levels surging. And from what we saw from the data as well, it felt like people were playing more as well. They went from 2 to 3 times a week to playing 4 to 5 times a week. So it's not just more people were playing more often. So, and I think golf clubs, it was a healthy insurgence for the golf industry because they saw memberships come back and a lot of clubs filled up and rounds were high. So I think it was a very interesting time. The piece that I've always put in there as the cautionary tale is, are we still doing the things that we need to so that this can be sustainable going forward? Because yes, it's great. I mean, COVID put us into overtime with people on courts, people playing more, taking more lessons, but also travel was shut down. So as travel started to open back up, I think we're seeing that now in 2022. It's still very busy, but you're seeing that plateau out there. And so I think we've got to now, for the next generation, make sure that we've got all the things in place so we can keep the popularity and we don't get into that downturn. Because I'm sure you guys, like myself, get frustrated when people say tennis is dead. And it's a frustrating comment to hear because it can very much be alive, and it's just such an amazing game for everyone to play, and it's a lifelong game. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, CB, we've got
tickers with Rickers. Update, Kig's up third set 6-3, so he's up 2 sets to 1, so going into the fourth. So just wanted to let anybody know, we had that from our buddy Mark Faber out of Toledo, Ohio. Gave us the update with the 8:40 update, just in case anybody's scoring at home. So
love it. Love it. Let's move to another segment, I guess the third segment of the second set. I want to hear a little bit about, you've set this up nicely by talking about how we're positioned. You mentioned the word engagement, the idea of taking things even up. And I think you used the word engagement, stickiness for members and social events. I want to talk a little bit about retention, not just necessarily members, but overall tennis population. Tell us how you are training and grooming and patterning tennis professionals, whether they're directors or head pros or on the court, with young people, whatever it is. Tell us how you're training and you're positioning your properties for that kind of sustained success.
Sure. It's there's probably a few factors that go in there. I mean, I'm sure everyone who listens to the podcast here is seeing that there is a shortage of people coming into this industry, the racket sports industry, whatever their path is with that. If it's taking the court, if it's managing clubs, director, pro, what have you. I think we take a bit of a multi-level approach at it. We look more for character because we can train skills. So look for good people that can be good leaders and their character of holding the pride of the club and making good decisions, and that we've always put 3 pillars for us. It's 1, they love tennis or racket sports. Number 2, they see it as a career, because anything you see as a career, you tend to want to invest in. And I'd say 3, they have what we call internally like a growth mindset. Every day they want to get a little bit better at something that they're doing. And you add all those little bits up over a year, 5 years, 10 years, that tends to really set them into a groomed position, however they want to take the career. So I think those are the things we look for when we interview people. And then internally, we try to put a bunch of education, support, and opportunities behind them. And I'd say 95% of the people that have become directors in our company were internal promotions, which is something we're very proud of, because people have come in and then as they move up, and it's a win-win for everyone, because as more people move up, you can get more opportunities for more people. You can grow more. I think we also take an approach of, build a good program, build a good club or partner with good clubs, but then make sure you've got a well-rounded programming slate that's not just programming, but it's got play options, because the individual pro can do really well by teaching one-on-one lessons and taking care of Mary, and they get very territorial because they've got their 30 or 40 people, rather than get more people on the court, but make sure outside of their programming, you're setting up play options for them and they match up. So if it's a tennis 101 person, they've got their sip and serve program. If it's a 4-0 men that's in the team practice, they've got their USTA or their UTR or their leagues, but they've got their mixes, but you set up a lot of play options. And I think sustainably, that's how we continue to grow, because you get more people engaged and sticky and retaining, because with the pro is part of their experience, but a lot of their experience is around the people, the play options and the friends. And I think that's how they really stay with the game more long-term. And I think as clubs, we've got to make sure we balance those out. We don't just go all in on the programming and how does it benefit us.
That sounds very sustainable and successful. And how do you do it when you have pros with great character and good skills, but their mindset is a little bit of that territorial, I teach them well, and I'm keeping them, and I don't want them playing in a this or a that. Sure. I want them in lessons with me. That's how I'm making money.
It's I think more than anything, you just got to expose them to other options. Bring them into some other opportunities where it's either they can be a part of something different or learn a new skill set, because I think a lot of the time it's a safety net. They know they're very good at something, So if you can expose them to something a little different, it may sort of bring down the barriers a little bit and sort of share a different way to do it, or a way that, because as pros as well, I mean, there's a lot of wear and tear. I mean, so many guys go out and girls go out and hit the courts, and teaching 8 hours of privates it's a very grueling piece. So if you can expose them to different ways so they can have a sustainable growth as well, I think that's sort of where we try to focus it there.
That is compelling, because I know the short-sighted ones think, 8 to 10 hours a day, that's how I afford the house and the BMW and the whatever. But thinking more big picture and long-term is compelling, and I'm glad you made those points. The next item on our sort of list is the club business, and I'd love if you could talk about, of course, we've covered engagement, stickiness, social events, and the interweaving of all the racket sports. Tell us a little bit about club business and maybe the marketing side and some of the things you encourage your clubs and your properties to do exceedingly well, and how you do it too.
I think we've been very lucky to attract a lot of talented people, and we've just got so many talented people on our team. We've all been like-minded. Our approach is more of a servient approach. How do we serve our clubs and how do we serve our people? And Cliff and Don, when they started the company many years ago, they had this vision of building headquarters that had a marketing department, a finance department, operations, so that when a pro came off the court, they weren't doing things that they weren't skilled in. Because that's challenging. You get off after 8 hours on the court, then you've got to put a flyer together. What takes you and I 4 hours to put a flyer together, a graphic artist can whip up in 15 minutes. So I think it was looking at the sort of the ingredients in the recipe to build a really good, what happened? Sorry, guys. To build a real...
What's your dog's name, out of curiosity?
That is Bowser.
Bowser.
He is a 20-pound Cavapoo that thinks he's an 85-pound Rockwheeler. So, yeah, he's appropriately named. He's like Bowser. He just sort of bounces around all the place.
Bowser.
But yeah, I think that's sort of the recipe of putting the training in there and getting other industry experts, people that are good at marketing, because then you start exposing racket sports people like myself. I wasn't trained in marketing or finance or any of that. I was a tennis guy. I started teaching. The reason I bought my stringing machine was because I needed a way to string rackets because I couldn't afford to get them restrung all the time. So then I just started learning different pieces by being around our finance department, our marketing department, getting engaged with different people. I saw a bigger tomorrow. And that was sort of really important. I think that's what we've got to do. And that's what we focus on, is finding talented people, then exposing them to these different skill sets and just trying to broaden their horizons. And so I think when you do that at a club level, you start to bring more value to the club, to the member, to the experience. And I think if you have that recipe of bringing value, you then support them and everyone wins in that approach. So we try to, a director, we put them at the club, and we have a philosophy of we work for them, not they work for us. So we try to put as many people around them as possible.
That is a very effective and now trending flip that a lot of companies are using, and I love that you guys are. Hey, you gave a neat example of how you get off the court and you got to make a flyer, and you better do it, and it may take a while, but you got to do it. But marketing person, graphic designer at the corporate headquarters, she or he can knock it out in 15, 20 minutes. How do all your properties, this is 63 properties, do they feed content that's local to that designer, and does she or he send it back out for distribution to their membership, or is it more of a template and the pro fills things in?
No, we've got one of the best in the business, young lady out of Texas, New Braunfels, Stacey Alford. She really produces all of it, and every property is different. Some of the bigger brands, they do more things internal.
I see.
But we've just sort of built systems and processes around ways that people can feed information in. So why our team is teaching, there's someone in different departments, marketing, getting their social feed together, getting their graphics together, or what have you. And it's same thing. It's always an evolving process. We were a little mom and pop originally, so we were bootstrapping it all together and very scrappy at the start. And then as we've gotten bigger and bigger, we've been able to get into some better software and processes and evolved. And I think that's sort of the approach we take at it. And we try to educate our directors as much as possible and bring them in and educate them on marketing, because they're tennis guys and girls essentially. And we never take it for granted that we have a company, because guys and girls go out and teach tennis every single day, which is what allows us to keep growing the game.
Tremendous. Love the idea that you work for them as they work for those people taking the lessons or coming to the programs. Part of the club business, of course, is facilities. And, you know, I've spent some time at the country club right next to Newcomb's, where Craig and I have an event in about 5-6 days. I've spent some time at that 80K in Tyler, and it seems like almost all the Drysdale properties have that fence that I love. That's not really a fence. It's more of a meshy net, and it looks so good. Tell us about the choice and what, and you don't have to just talk about the fence. I'm just making it a silly example, but what unifies all these Drysdale properties and why?
Yeah, the fence is an interesting one. We were always a big believer of try to bring beauty into the court. A lot of tennis courts are built around car parks, so you put the windscreens up to sort of hide that. But in a lot of these properties, like in Tyler and John Newcomb, that stems from our facility design. Cliff and Don designed that at the Ritz down in Key Biscayne. So it feels more friendly, more inviting, not so closed off, and you bring people into the experience more. So we actually, the one we did at John Newcomb's, we did a bit of an experimental process on that one. We got some polypropylene, and Don and I and Don's dad, we basically sort of strapped it all up together, not knowing how it was going to work out. And every time we'd see a guy run into the back of the fence and spring back off, we didn't know if that was going to be the day that the fence came down, but it sort of held over time. But we definitely have an eye to detail on design. And we always try to, with our partners, help with the experience, because a lot of clubs, if it's designed well, you put that clubhouse in the center of the experience, because you bring people in and it's more engaging and more friendly and brings everyone together. Rather than if you have the pro shop here and then a line of courts that go out to the back of wherever, and you feel like you've been shunned if you're out on court, what have you, down the back there. So we always try to bring the experience together and bring the energy together with it.
Yeah, you guys have a tremendous eye for the flow of how a club should look and run. And I just love those fences, because you don't need the windscreens for it. And it's typically, like you said, you put it near woods, not near a bunch of cars or traffic. Sure. But the other thing I enjoy about it is you can just look in and you don't feel. I remember in the 90s, I played golf a little bit. I'm not a huge golfer. I'm certainly not anymore. But at the time, I remember the guy who played pro tennis, and he was maybe 6-7 years older than I. And he was like, I love playing tennis with you, but I'm taking you to the golf course. Golf is amazing. You feel like you're in nature. Not really, but come on, right? In tennis, you feel like you're in a cage. Well, at a Drysdale property, you don't have that cage feel at all with those meshy open fences. I love them.
Yeah, no, they're super fun. They're super fun.
Yeah.
Exciting.
And you can hit against them like it's a rebound net when you're waiting for your opponent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There you
go. Let's move over to the current industry, and I'd love if you can talk a little bit about the future too. The future of racket sports, or the way it's moving from current to future, and how you see not just your company but everybody moving in the right direction. How do you see it?
Yeah, I see there's a few areas to discuss on that one. I think with professionals, it's how do we become skilled in different racket sports? I think if I looked at a lot of young professionals today, I'd be sharing, you can have a favorite or one you want to specialize in. Just like with tennis, you have people that want to do high performance, or adults or young kids or leagues or what have you. But it's always a good idea to get a rounding in all of that. I think the same thing with racket sports. It's how do you make yourself more valuable to the club, to yourself, to the industry, and get a little certified or get more education in how to deliver that. And that comes in many, many different forms. So I think that's one piece. I think we need better information for clubs and data for facilities out there so they can make data-driven decisions. We're actually working with a really good company out of South Florida right now called Play by Point, so that we can pull out all the metrics and the usage so you can make data-driven decisions on what sort of courts you need to add or increase, or the capacities in there. Because I think a lot of the time we've made decisions just by the feeling of it. It feels like they're busy all the time, or this is what people want. But if you can really make it based off data, you're going to really be able to show clubs how to invest in racket sports and build more courts. And I think that's where tennis and pickleball need to align, because the more that there's value, because more people come to membership, or there's programming, or people pay to play, they're going to get more courts are going to be put in around the country. Both sports sort of hopping on the momentum of pickleball right now. You've got your spec tennis and your pop and platform and all of that. And they've got pockets of the country where they're popular. We've got a little platform program right now up in New Hampshire. So that's our first sort of dipping the toe into the platform arena. So I think I think it's important though for us is to have pros investing in racket sports and delivering programming and play options. I think it's important that we have data for clubs so that we can look at court usage and compaction and how do we program and put play in there. And then I think, the last thing as well is how do we continue to market these great racket sports? How do we continue to show all the positive influence and effect that they have in a lot of people's lives? And I think a lot of that is grassroots, organic reach. It's how do we invest in our communities around whether in Dallas, Texas, or if you're in Florida or where have you, and educate those pros, because then I think more facilities will open up and continue to grow.
Tremendous. That was a great summary. Lastly, in this second set, hit us with what you think of this World Conference coming up in New Orleans later this month in September.
Yeah, excited. I mean, it's fun anytime you get a bunch of tennis or racket sports people together, because, we keep in contact with others more than, but it's great to see everyone. It's great to see people have a thirst for continuing to learn. I think we, as whatever business you're in, you've got to continue to evolve and start to see the trends and how do you learn from others. I love collaborating with a bunch of different people. We believe as a company, PBI, True, and CDT, to invest and help. So myself and my colleague, Scott Colborn, we speak at a lot of different conferences and serve on some USTA committees because we believe in giving back and sort of sharing. But then, I'm excited. I'm going to be speaking at the conference and it's going to be great. Hopefully I see you guys there. And the first one I went to after COVID was in Vegas, and it was great to see everyone back again, because I think for a lot of people, when they get together, it sort of recharges their batteries.
Yeah.
It sort of reignites a love for it. And New Orleans is an exciting place to have it at. I mean, so,
you appropriately use the word thirst for knowledge. I think there's a thirst for other stuff too in a city like right. Well, it's
VB,
good.
maybe a VB.
Maybe a VB. You're right.
Yeah, there you go. Where can I get one of those here in America?
You'll have to settle for an Abita, which is the Louisiana kind of thing to drink.
Not a Foster's, right? Not a
Nobody has Foster's.
Not a Foster's.
Nobody has Foster's. Hey, what's your talk on at the World Conference? I'm going to miss it. I've got an MC gig at a club or at an event in Los Angeles that whole weekend, so I'm going to miss out. But give me a quick slice of what you're going to do.
Yeah, it's building successful programs for your clubs and the skill sets that go with that. So I think we don't always put all of the pieces together. I think we try to replicate programs before and just put the shell of a program together. But it's what are the skill sets that have got to go with that so we can deliver it.
Yeah, because if the skill set's not there, you wonder why. Well, I tried that. Why didn't it work? I don't know. Screw it. You know? Exactly.
It's not just a hit it out of the park all the time. It's I watched it the other day on a plane, and it just always rings home for me. I love that movie Moneyball.
Yes.
I love the theory behind get on first base. Don't swing for the fences. Don't get the all-stars. Get the people that can contribute and get on base every time. And I think of that when I think of tennis programs and clubs, because you tend to then build sustainable programs, sustainable clubs, and you start to realize what do you need to work on for it to be successful. And I think we try to just replicate because we hear success stories. Someone has a great cardio tennis program going on at Bentry. All right, great. How do I replicate that at my club? Well, what are the skill sets that I need to deliver great cardio for it to be successful where I am? Well, someone has a great tennis 101 program. All right, great. What are they doing for me to replicate it? It's not just getting the flyer and the details. It's what are all the skill sets behind it? And then I think the big part to that is how do you match that up and have people understand that? Because a lot of people want to play with or teach the better kids thinking that you're a better coach. It's how do you identify a lot of skill sets that people have and match them up for where they can be successful.
Brilliant, Scott. So you're telling me that it's not just branding and then fake it till you make it. There has to be some skill. There has to be some substance involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
That's what I was going to say. We don't have any idea how we're successful. We just wing it. I mean,
Craig is a little too humble. He's the most giving guy, and he's the most skilled guy around. And he'll just tell you he's a monkey on a typewriter who produces something every now and then.
Well,
he's full of
I know my very good friend Jerome spent a lot of time at Bentry with Craig, and he always spoke in such high regard of Craig. The one bone I would have to pick with Craig, though, is that I used to read some of his emails, and they were very, very long emails. And Jerome took that too much to heart. So every time Jerome would send a text message out or an email to us, he felt a need to try to outdo Craig. And
oh, no.
Yeah. Tennis news you can almost use.
Do not. Even the title's long.
Right. Yeah, it was fun to do. I got sick, unfortunately, last year, and I couldn't finish up the work. And then we've been doing a lot with the podcast, so there's just not much.
We've been doing 2 a week plus a few things. Yeah.
So there wasn't much time. I enjoyed writing, believe it or not, and I tried to make everything about this big, so that way you could scroll down fast.
Yeah, bite size. Yeah. It was readable.
Little appetizers. Type of deal. But there was a lot of information. I just kept going. My mind just like, ooh, I can add this.
Yeah.
I can add this. So.
But the difference is yours was meaningful and useful. Jerome's had no meaning.
Right. Coach Jerome, that's right. Yeah, has nothing. Those French guys got nothing, you know.
It's so funny.
Do you want our update right now?
I want a Nikki Kiggs and Medvedev update, and then I want questions from the crowd as we end the second set, and then I want to rock a third set with Scott McCulloch.
Yeah, Kiggs up 3-1. So the fellow Aussie Nick Kyrgios is up right now, going into the fourth set at 3-1, according to our tickers with Rickers.
All right. Well, thank you, Rick Eckloff. A great man, a great fan, and we get to see him develop into a really good tennis player, too, which is kind of fun. Any questions? I see Susan, the great Susan Nardi in there.
Yes, she is.
What is she asking?
Yeah, she's just checking to see if all is well.
Oh, she's saying a lot.
I was going to stop by at Scott's Newport's Beach Club, but my girl got to walk over in the Pro UTR down the street. So, and by the way, she loved the emails too. So,
she's the best.
I'm sure she read every one of them, just top to bottom. You know,
she is amazing. Yeah, tremendous lady. Well, Craig Bell, third set.
Should we go?
Let's go, man.
Should we say who our sponsors are?
What we need to do is mention all of them.
Yes, at one
like
time.
Conga Sports. I actually got off the phone with Tennis Club Businesses. Rich Nair earlier today. Tremendous guy. That's the First Green Tennis Network. Another sponsor for us is the Circula app. It's out of the UK, but it is not. It's now worldwide.
It's worldwide. Sports and entertainment, bringing it under one app together. But, if you're thinking about Rich, me writing long, newsletters. Tennis Club Business is an unbelievable newsletter. I read Rich's stuff all the time. But he's got an interesting. I'm sure you read it also too, Scott.
I read it every month when it comes out.
He's got some interesting stuff in there. I'm just like, golly, where did he come up with all that content?
I felt so privileged, returning his call and talking to him for 20, 30 minutes today. Tremendous guy.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got to tell us third set sponsor.
That would be the great Blair Descaray with Master Systems. He's been our buddy for years and years and years, believes in us. And we've got, is it this side? I don't know which side. We've got Master Systems on our
left temple.
Left temple, whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know left from right. But Blair does all sorts of resurfacing. He did the courts right behind us. These have been 9 years, Scott. Believe it or not. Yeah, they are unbelievable.
I can't believe how good they are. Yeah. I have spent some time on them, and 9 years ago there's some wrinkles and weird stuff down on number 4.
But not anymore.
They're all perfect, and kudos. I don't know if this is Blair or you, but whatever you've done, the lights are ridiculously good in here.
Yeah. So our buddy Blair Descaray has been our buddy for a zillion years, and if you need any type of court equipment, accessories, Scott, if you ever need anybody to do a good job around our area, I know Blair doesn't travel too far anymore.
That's right.
He has a lot of business here around the Dallas area, but he is a great guy to be able to do your surface work, any type of building, nets, accessories. So
quality.
Check out Blair Descaray with Master Systems. So.
Quality always. And speaking of quality, he sponsors the third set,
that's right.
Which is always making me laugh and having fun. So, Craig, take it away with Scott.
Here we go. All right, Scott. So we have 3 sets in the third set also, too. So I've broken them up into 3 different things. But we always like to ask these questions. It's always fun, to go. First band you saw in concert, Scott and McCulloch.
Counting Crows.
Counting Crows.
I expected to hear In Excess or some Hoodoo Gurus, some Aussie band, but it's guys from over here.
Yep.
Where at?
I saw them in Sydney, Australia. I can't place what the year was, but
90
years ago.
97 maybe, 96, right in there?
Maybe, that sounds about right, yeah.
So have you seen NXS ever? Did you ever see NXS?
I never saw NXS live. I don't go to a lot of concerts because as much as I don't like reading about big crowds of people. So, I'd love them. They were great.
So are the obligatory Men at Work? Did you see Men at Work? That's always.
He's too young. He is too young.
I've sung that song many times in karaoke. So,
down under.
I come from a land down under.
Yeah.
You're in a beat up Crombie, was it?
Combi.
Fried out
Combi.
That was such a great song. I remember when that came out. Okay. What kind of music do you like? I'll keep going on this music theme for a couple of questions. What kind of music do you like? What's on the playlist for Scott right now?
Funny enough, I actually don't listen to a lot of music. I listen to whatever everyone's got in the car. I actually drove from California to Texas one time, and I didn't listen to one song in the car.
Really?
But I would say that I like a lot of probably classic rock. I do like some country. Country grew on me. Went through my time in Texas, and it got pretty modern. So I like a little bit of country and some classic rock.
So during your time down in New Braunfels, did you ever go to Green Hall over and have
I did many times.
Have a beverage over there, the great country and Western. They do country and Western also there.
Both kind of music.
Both kind of music. And maybe some swing there. It's not even big as a tennis court. I think that place is probably about half the size of a tennis court. But it's legendary down in the New Braunfels. It's probably about, less than 5 miles away from Nukes? It's not very far, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and what is it? They have live music every night of the year.
Right.
It's that's quite legendary at the Green Hall.
Yeah, so basically if you've had too many VBs, you could probably walk home, right? Instead of drive home.
The floor gets straighter the more you have.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
If you go in there, it's on the slant.
It is. Yeah, I've been in there once, a long time ago, but I just know driven by it. I didn't realize how close it was to Nukes. It's not that far away. It's just a mile, maybe.
Yeah, it's right
2 miles.
there.
It's really close. If you're in a band, this is kind of fun because it talks about your personality. If you're in a band, and you might have been in a band back in Sydney, where would you be in the bands? Where would Scott be? Would you be the lead singer? Do you like guitar, bass, piano, drums, glockenspiel? See, I'm a world famous glockenspiel player. I didn't know if you know that.
I think I want to be the drummer.
The drummer.
Because I feel like the drummer sets the tone and puts the rhythm for everyone in there.
Right.
And also they can get a little bit of flair at the end and sort of finish it all off. But I think I'd like to be in the drummer, sort of sitting back, watching it all unfold in front of me.
So would you be like a drummer, say, of John Bonham? You're just all over the place, long hair, headband, or who are you? Alex Van Halen? Who's kind of the guy that you're drumming after? Who's your style? Are you more or like let's see, that would be Bunny Carlos from Cheap Trick.
Cheap Trick.
Yeah.
He smokes a cigarette.
I would probably be more of the probably organized drummer, the guy that's really trying to set the trend in there. You'd probably know what's coming. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't just be off the cuff of what's going to happen, and you wouldn't know what's going to happen. It'd be pretty predictable, I think.
You sound like Charlie Watts. He was so the Rolling Stones drummer. Yeah. He was so together and very jazzy too, but so together and just a light touch, but it was huge.
Right.
Yeah. So I like that organized drummer.
Yeah.
Or kind of like Ringo. Ringo was like that too. Ringo Starr was underestimated. I know he gets a lot of flack for not being a very good drummer because he just played simple stuff, and it's kind of like, no, wait a minute, that guy was way good. He could. Yeah. He has some chops out there. So, all right.
Sometimes simple's better. Keep it simple, right?
Yes.
Keep it simple. You can reproduce it more often and put scale to it.
Yep. So our ticker, once again, Susan Nardi, thank you, from California, 51 Nick. Looks like Kiggs might be closing us out. So what do you think about that, Kiggs?
Mate, you call yourself a journalist. Piss off. Next question. I'm not done with it.
I'm not done with the match?
I'm not done with this yet, mate. This guy's good.
Okay.
This Medvedev guy's good, mate.
Because usually he likes to start talking and jabbering around. So I, just kind of thought that might be kind of fun.
I'm just happy. I got a laugh out of an Aussie.
That's right. Exactly.
That's pretty rock solid. That's pretty rock solid.
Thanks, mate.
Well, most time when people try to put an Australian accent on, they make us sound English.
They do.
Right.
They do.
Yeah.
Or they go too bogan and way too outback with, like, you get the feeling they've got the hat with the corks hanging down, and it's too much, So I try to underplay it when it comes to Nick.
So one real quick funny story. I was in Cincinnati. I spent a couple of years in Cincinnati, and I did a little fundraiser event for the club I was at for a little leukemia association. And we had to get some food. So I went down to the local Outback and I'd asked if they'd donate the food. And they said, sure, we'll donate the food. But with that, you have to do a recording for us. So I did a little voice recording for them that they'd have. And so people were calling up and they heard me. This is going back years ago.
Love it.
G'day, mate. Welcome to Outback Steakhouse. Why don't you come in for the Rockhampton ribeye or throw another shrimp on the barbie? But people would call up and ask to get put on hold so they could
hear your voice. On you, man. That's good. And did you kick it up a couple notches with the Bobby? And
of course. You had to. Shit. Yeah, exactly.
Which is, it's really funny. When I got there, the first time I went to Australia, I started doing that typical stupid stuff. Throw a shrimp on the barbie. They go, we don't call that shrimp. We call them prawns.
Prawns.
I was like, what? I go, you don't call that shrimp? You're going to save a shrimp on the barbie? They go, no. That's totally American. It was made up, by Outback Steakhouse, and I then realized
I give Jim Carrey an assist too.
Oh, Jimmy Carrey, did he?
I think he ruined it for Australia. Yeah.
And then also, I think Mick Dundee made Foster's beer so famous that we all thought you all drank Foster's beer, and you're like, no, nobody drinks Foster's. That's like the worst beer. And I'm like, really? I go, that was at that time, Crocodile Dundee, with Foster's beer, I guess that was really kind of, they needed some advertising, and they paid a lot of money to be in the movie, and it hit over really well with the Yanks, those stupid Yanks,
Mate, guilty as charged. I was in college. I thought it was the coolest thing to have that blue can, that big tin.
Yeah.
The big oil can. I mean, in the 80s, they just had great marketing. They came over to America. They put it in, Mick Dundee, the Crocodile Hunt, then no other Australian company sort of made that move. And we always had a joke. I mean, most of it's brewed in Canada now.
Yeah.
What you get down here.
Yeah.
We always had a funny saying as an Aussie. It'd say, Well, it didn't make it over here because the bottles were empty before they got to the port.
That's what they mean by export quality.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, mates.
Yeah, I had to check the quality to make sure, but then there was nothing less to ship.
So was that the beer of choice at Nukes for the great boat races that we hear about at the what were those the senior events, the Nukes
Legends.
Fantasy.
Yeah, I've heard of those. The boat race, boy, that is legendary. And were they weren't using Fosters, I take it?
No, they were using anything that was laying around. They didn't have any particular palate.
Didn't matter.
Yeah, I've heard about those. I've had some friends that've gone down and been part of the Legends.
Oh, they love it.
Oh my gosh, the boat races is just ridiculously fun to be a part of. From what I understand, Scott, I've never witnessed one, but I've just heard. I'm sure you've seen one, haven't you? Or have you participated?
I've seen a few of them. It's just great. I mean, you get some of those Aussie legends like John Newcombe, Roy Emerson, Fred Stolle, and you get all these, and then current legends like Mark Woodford and Rick Leach and all of that. And it's really cool to see there's a brotherhood of people really come together and spend a bunch of time, and you really get to sort of listen to their war stories, and yeah, they have a bit of fun with it as well, and they have a bit of a boat race. And
even a non-Aussie like Johan Creek, we've had him on the show 2-3 times, and I'll talk to him or text with him, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm coming up for Legends Week. I got to get in shape for it." You know?
Yeah, that's like I said, it sounds like a lot of fun, just male fun, just hijinks.
Good clean fun for middle-aged men to enjoy.
For them to feel like they're 13 years old again.
Right. Amen. Amen. That's what it's all about.
There's a lot of ice bags and a lot of Bengay.
Yeah, that's after the second day, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I got to ask you a question here because, I need to know if I need to proceed at this point right here because this is a really good question about Aussie rules football. Oh, all right. I'm a fan of Carlton, and so are you a fan of one of the Sydney clubs named the Swans? Or, are we going to have to fight over this and end the broadcast right now?
So the funny thing, when I was growing up, you had three codes of football. You had rugby league, rugby union, and Aussie rules. Right. And depending on where you really lived in the country, sort of dictated a lot of the code that you watched a lot. So growing up in Sydney, I was a rugby league fan. So I went for a team called Eastern Suburbs, the Roosters. Right. But then at that time when I was living in Australia, the Swans were terrible. I mean, they would win one game a season, and there would be a celebration like they'd won the grand final.
Right.
So they were the bottom rung for many, many years, and then they had a good year. They went out and bought a bunch of players. But, yeah, I would say I'm a Sydney Swans fan, and never really played any Aussie rules football.
Oh, you didn't? You didn't play? Yeah.
Leighton Hewitt loved watching Aussie rules.
Oh, he's a big Adelaide Crows man.
Yeah.
I started watching in the early 80s. ESPN didn't have anything to throw out there. And I know I was in Oklahoma at the time, and a bunch of Australians, we played at Oklahoma State, OU, OCU, Tulsa. So I was hanging around them, and we were watching Australian football. Actually, I worked for an Australian in '84, Phil Lancaster.
Right, Phil.
Yeah, so I watched a lot. I watched a lot of Aussie rules with those guys and figured out, what was going on. That's my favorite sport, actually. And I've actually stood on the MCG. We took the tour. One of my friends who I played college tennis with lives in Australia, and I was down there. So he goes, "Hey, you want to go on the tour?" I go, "Hell yes, I want to go on the tour. Let's." Because he's a Carlton fan as well. So I just remember standing out there going, "Oh my gosh!" I'm seeing here 40 years later, standing at the MCG, the vaunted MCG that where all these great matches have gone on. Besides, Aussie football, cricket obviously is big back in your neck of the woods. I didn't understand cricket. I was sitting there watching a game. I was like, what the hell are they doing? It's like,
it's hard to explain to an American that you can play a game for 5 days and it ended in goal.
Right. It's like, hey, what's going on here? Oh, it's a great game.
We want 2.5 hours and it will end in a high score.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Americans want, man.
So do you like the scoreboard?
So do you like American football? Just out of curiosity, do you watch American football?
I do. I don't watch tons of it, but I do watch it. I struggled when I got over here to find what team I wanted to support because I didn't have any college alliances. So I didn't really have any college teams to really watch. And then I lived in different parts of the country, so I followed different professional teams. When I was in Dallas, when I was in Texas, I followed Dallas and what have you. But then probably about 15 years ago, the Green Bay Packers actually sold some shares because they were doing like a renovation. So my brother and I bought one share of the Green Bay Packers. So ever since then, I've been a Green Bay Packer. I've been a cheesehead.
Do you have a cheesehead? Do you have one of those cheeseheads?
I don't have one of those, but I've got the jersey. And my brother and I have always threatened, because with that one share, it's only worth whatever you'd want to buy it from for. But you can go to the shareholders meeting. So we've always said it'd be funny to go up one day and attend one of those and watch the Packers, support the Packers. So I feel like so it's always a fun conversation starter with, well, I'm a minor owner of the Packers, not really in the day-to-day operations.
We have a wee bit. We've got
more of a minority ownership.
One share.
The light up there in the stadium. We own that. That light bulb that shines on the stadium. We own that. That's us. Right there. No, the Packers. They've been a lot better than the Cowboys. Holy smokes, we just hadn't had much here. We live in Dallas, and it's kind of like the Carlton Blues. We were singing the blues all the time. When I was really watching Carlton, they were good, and then until about the mid '90s, and then all of a sudden, after Stephen Kernahan left, it was like, down the drains. And so we almost made it. Then we lost a nail biter last week or the week before. We just barely lost that. We were ahead like 20 points going into the fourth quarter, and then that was it. At full time, they lost by 1 point, and that was to go to the playoffs. So I think it was against the Magpies too. I think it was against Collingwood, which that's Phil Lancaster's team.
Oh, that's his team. Yeah.
I lost to Phil, on the Magpies on that deal. And I texted my buddy Barry down in Melbourne because I looked at the time. What time?
Nissenbaum, right?
Yeah, Barry Nissenbaum. I go, damn it, Barry. I go, what happened? I go, were you at the game? He goes, yeah, I was at the game. I was like, well, you didn't yell loud enough. I was like, there's like 102,000 there. It was ridiculous. It was a big ticket.
Big stadium.
It's a huge stadium. I really didn't realize how big it was, but it was a lot of fun. So I diverted. So sorry about that. First paid job. What was your first paid job? Did you have a paper route? Throwing the Sydney Times or anything like that?
No, my first paid job was stringing rackets and at the pro shop at the local tennis center. I worked the Sunday shift, and I worked from 8 to 6, and I strung rackets as a way to sort of just earn a little bit of extra cash. And the name of it was Parkland Sports Center. So it was a tennis court. It was a tennis center owned by Brad Druitt, who was a great.
Oh, I remember Brad. Yeah.
Yeah. That's sort of where I started then teaching a little bit after that as well. And it was a lot of great memories. And that's where I met Clint Newcomb and John Newcomb and got involved with the Newcomb family there. And
this thing, you're over here in the States working in Texas. Probably a culture shock when you came over.
Well, I said I was going to come over here for 3 months, and here I am 23 years later. I'm still on my third month. One funny story, when I first came over, I struggled in Texas with the whole y'all thing.
Y'all.
Right. People, where y'all from? And, one of my embarrassing moments was when I first got over there, people were asking what I'd like to do on my day off. And I said, well, I'd like to, put on the short shirt, put some thongs on and go for a walk around and all of that. And this bunch of ladies asked me if I liked wearing thongs. I was like, yeah, they're really comfortable. And I said, yeah, my dad and I are the same size. So that's great. So I'm thinking of the flip-flops.
Right.
Yeah, that was a
over here.
It's like it's a Speedo.
That's right. Yeah. Thong is underwear.
Like, oh, wow, okay, wow,
that's great.
So, favorite movie, TV show? Do you watch some movies, TV? Do you do stuff like that?
I watch a lot of streaming stuff on Netflix and sort of find some actions or some drama series. We're live on air here, and I have to confess, my wife has got me watching 90 Day Fiancé every week.
Wow!
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I watch 90 Day Fiancé with my wife every week, and it's Do
you get the popcorn and sit in bed like some of the people do that talk?
Pillow talk. I tell you, that's one of those guilty pleasures for a lot of families. And I remember my wife expressing to me that, it's like educational. It's on the Learning Channel. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What are we learning?
Until you said that, I didn't even know what the TLC standard was.
It's not tender loving care.
It's not. It's the Learning Channel. It's like, all right, honey, salute. Yeah. You watch that. I'll be in the other room.
Yeah. Me and Little Penny.
That's right. Me and the dog going
his
over
dog's
here.
named Little Penny.
Also, a 20-pounder who thinks she's 80 and runs the house. Yeah.
We're in the puppy stage right now, so it's that's fun
great.
part.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner. What are you a fan of?
Love dinner. Especially dinner and conversation with people, because I find generally in breakfast, people do that on their own and normally don't want to talk too much. Lunch normally sort of fits a bit of the hectic part of the day, but dinner is where you can sort of decompress a little bit and have some good conversation, whether it's with a friend, with a group of friends, or
it's a nice segue.
What have you.
It's a nice segue into what we the next question is. We're going to have this nice dinner party, shindig, soiree, as we call it in Oklahoma, and you could invite. We know AJ and I would be invited, obviously.
Absolutely, the heads of the table.
Well, that's nice of you. Thank you. 4 people or more that you might, you can bring them back all the way from Adam and Eve. You can bring them, from the metaverse. They might be real fictitious. They could be from Harry Potter. Any 4 or more people that you'd like to invite. Sports figures, non-sports. Albert Einstein. Okay. Yeah. See, we stumped him. We got him thinking.
Yeah. He's trying to think on that.
Is there some people out there that we've had a lot of interesting guests that we're going to have dinner with?
I think probably I'd like to get people from different walks of life. I'd probably have someone from the entertainment industry.
Yep.
Someone that I think is funny and they've got a wide range as an actor is Chris Hemsworth, another Aussie.
Yep.
So I think he'd be pretty funny to have there. I like Denzel Washington.
I'm a big
Denzel Washington fan. He's someone that seems pretty powerful and influential. Mm-hmm. So I think that would definitely stir up some fun conversation. I think from the sporting world, I'd love to have Nick Kyrgios there because we don't know what's going to happen, and we may have some plates and knives being thrown around all over the place,
or underhanded serve.
That's right.
Someone under the table, right there, just to throw it.
I think that'd be an interesting one to have there. And then I've got a neighbor up the road called Richie, who's just a great guy and really fun mate. So he'd definitely be someone I'd want to have there as well. So a lot of the time, people I like to have at the table are the ones that are, Now, it's a given that my wife's there and she's part of the initial set.
Oh, yeah. We know that. Any family member, they're invited. But we're just trying to get some people there that maybe, non-family, that would, and especially us.
He's got a good mix.
That's a
going.
good mix.
I love
it. Yeah. Would you want to have Rafa there? Would you want to have Rafa?
Rafa, I don't think he's going to get to the table. I love everything that he does, but I think in keeping the conversation going, I think we might sort of digress a little bit. But I would like to have Roger there. I mean, Roger would be a very fun one to chat with because he's just amazing on so many levels. I think you don't have to be a tennis fan to love Roger.
Rafa, what do you think about that?
Well, Scott McCulloch, I going to work hard. I get an invitation, to this dinner. I realize I'm not going to keep the conversation as entertaining as Denzel, as Roger, as Craig, and you, but Richie. But I'm going to work hard. I can tell you that.
That is... You're a master of your many talents there. Okay.
We've got a few more to go through. We make ourselves laugh. We do this.
We just crack each other up.
Sorry about that. I couldn't pass that up. So
sorry.
But so I digress. So all right. So here's the kind of an interesting question also too. East Coast, West Coast. It could be Australia, which I know Sydney's on the East Coast.
Yeah, you've got
or
Perth.
East Coast, West Coast in the U.S. So both Australia and U.S. East Coast, West Coast.
Which I prefer to live in?
Yeah. Or do you prefer which side of the country? Both countries.
Always East Coast in Australia because I think whether it's Sydney, the Gold Coast, Melbourne, there's just so many different. A lot of people don't realize that if you take Alaska out, Australia is actually bigger than America.
Yeah, the mainland is our mainland is not as big as Australia.
Yeah, so it's I definitely take the East Coast. In America, I've lived on both the East and the West. I loved working on the West Coast because you were always ahead of the day because I'm an early morning riser. So I could get into the office at 5:30 or 6 and it was 9 o'clock on the the East Coast, so things were moving and things would shut down. But I love living on the East Coast. But West Coast was great for work. East Coast, I love living in Florida where I am right now. And so, yeah, prefer the East Coast.
Have you ever been out to Ayers Rock, just out of curiosity?
I have never made it to Ayers Rock. No, not.
Out in the middle of nowhere, right?
What a lot of people do when they backpack around Australia is they'll fly into Sydney and they'll buy a beaten-up car, a Kombi, if you will.
Yep.
And they'll just sort of travel around Australia and sort of spend a day, a week, a month in whatever little small town, and they'll sort of make it all the way around, and then they'll get back and sell the car for whatever it's worth at that point and fly back out. But Ayers Rock's a pretty special one for Australia.
Yeah.
I know my buddy Reggie Luttrell out of Perth. Yeah, he was a buddy of mine in the early 80s and all the way till today. He was in my wedding. He said he and his brother Tony, they were identical twins, drove from Perth to Melbourne to play in a tennis tournament, and just for something to do out in the middle of nowhere, they drove on the opposite side of the highway for about 50 miles or more before they ran into somebody else, just because that is such a long stretch. I mean, people don't realize, it's a huge country.
Yep.
Yeah, so they were out driving, probably in a Kombi, and that's all that they were coming across. I think when they were teenagers, and I was like, you drove more than 50 miles before you saw somebody? Go, yeah, we had to do something. We had to break up the monotony.
So they drove
and that drive as well is a straight drive. I mean, there's one road for a lot of it, just straight. So yeah, there's hard to keep that concentration going. So I can see them doing something like that.
I think a lot of the truckers, if I remember correctly, they get white line fever out there. They start and they run off the road. It's not uncommon for that to happen way out there in the middle of the nowhere. Out there.
And when they run those big road trains, I mean, there's carriage on carriage on carriage. I mean, that's a lot of weight that they're sort of hauling along. Yeah.
No, there was a fascinating show on trains, and they talked about taking the train from Perth, to Melbourne, and that takes a long time. I mean, it was several days of travel that they were doing out there. It was really pretty. I mean, the outback, the bush, is really interesting, and they stopped along the way at this trains. That's on Smithsonian Channel. It wasn't on TLC, so I was actually learning something on the Smithsonian Channel right there. But that was really a fascinating country. I mean, you guys have I've been to Sydney. I love Sydney. I've been up the bridge. Have you been up to the bridge? You've done the bridge climb? Yeah, you've done
I've done the bridge climb. That's what's really special about Sydney. The Harbour Bridge, most people don't realize it, but it's right in the center of the city. So, I mean, you probably see it every year when they have the fireworks as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I did that bridge climb. It was really cool to go up and over, but that's what's so cool about New Year's Eve. Everyone can watch. You don't have to be down in the city to watch the fireworks, because you can see it pretty much from every place in the city. You can see some sort of view of the Harbour Bridge, and it's pretty cool landmark.
Yeah, it was really interesting to be up on top. We took the fast way, so we went through the interior instead of going up on the top. So we did.
Did your knees get a little shaky?
I didn't actually. I usually kind of don't like heights, but it's so solid. I mean, what is there, like 8 lanes of traffic or something like that on both sides? I mean, it's huge. I mean, that bridge has been there, and it's massive. Then they have, I think, the trains run underneath, and they have
correct.
Just the regular cars go above. I mean, that thing is unbelievable. It's like the Golden Gate. I mean, the Golden Gate's similar kind of deal, and it was just a historic landmark. And at first, I was kind of like, I don't know, but it's so safe. You're just climbing up, and you're tethered onto the stairs as you go up, so you don't really feel anything, but you do climb. It was really nice, to be up there and you look around in the harbor there. That was one of my most fascinating places is to visit is Sydney. I had never been to San Francisco, but I would gather it would be fairly similar to Sydney.
There's a lot of similar, particularly with like Melbourne and San Francisco. A lot of the historic buildings and the old cathedrals and there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, I mean, either of those cities, I've told people I could live in either one of those, and it'd be
Melbourne or Sydney.
Either one of them. They'd be great cities to be a part of. The scene. It was just really nice. I took the hop on hop off tour buses and rode around and just listened to people talk about what was going on. I mean, I didn't realize Melbourne is the coffee capital of the world.
I can't believe it. Yeah,
coffee. It was unbelievable. They have more coffee places out there per capita than I think any place, even more than Seattle likes coffee. But Melbourne is like the coffee capital of the world. So
I did not know that. I've never actually had a cup of coffee in my life.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah.
we're both non-coffee drinkers, but I've had one or two, and I just assumed it would be somewhere in Turkey or Italy or South America or somewhere where the coffee has been part of their deal for a century, a millennium, but. It's Melbourne, Australia.
Right.
Crazy.
That's what at least that's what they said on the tour.
Oh, I've read that too. Yeah.
It was really, really pretty. The river. Is it Yarra?
Yarra.
Yeah, that runs right through there. And Federation Square. I sat there one night watching the Oz Open. On that big screen. And
he watched Roger Federer on Federation Square.
In Federation Square. And downtown, it was about 75 degrees at night, and it was about 9 o'clock. I was like, you could see the downtown, of Melbourne. And I was like, this is the most unbelievable. It's etched in my memory, sitting there with all these people watching.
It's even etched in my memory because he sent me those photos and I used the video to promote the first episode of Tennis Shorts.
Yeah, and that's why my favorite slam is the
Happy Slam.
The Happy Slam, the
AO.
Yeah. So it's
well, also the interesting thing about the Aussie Open is there's so much unpredictability about it because you don't know what a lot of people have been doing in the off season.
Right.
It's once you get past the Aussie, then you start to come into the hard court season, the French, and then everyone's following it. But how many times have you seen a winner of the Aussie Open that you've never seen them even come into the second week?
I think of Thomas Johansson was a surprise winner.
That's exactly who I was.
But even more, it's the predictable winner and the crazy finalist like Roger beating Bagdatis or I think
was it Peter
Andre.
Didn't Peter
Korda beat Rios? Yeah. That's two surprises.
Right, Peter Korda with the
famous, that's a good example.
Kick.
The kick, this thing,
The Sevi does.
Who's the other one? Sevi Korda does. Who's the other crazy one? Was it Rainer Schuttler got to the final of the Oz Open and he lost predictably to Andre Agassi, who was a bit of an Oz Open specialist. That guy thrived in the heat and on those rebound ace courts at the time, at least. Yeah,
it was that's been such a the first tournament out of the block right there. Yeah, it can cause some major hiccups for everybody. All right, mountains or beach? Are you a mountain guy or a beach guy?
Grew up on beaches, so always got a lot of comfort there. But I love mountains, so I'd probably say mountains at this stage of my life now because mountains normally means getting away from what the normal is and relaxing and having a little bit of a decompression. I try to be more self-reflective these days, and so I find that's easy to do in a mountain. Beach feels like there's everyone there.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really good question. I like to ask the Australians because you've lived over here long enough. Do you prefer the Christmas of the white Christmas, like mountains and I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, or do you like the Oz Christmas where you're at the beach?
100% the Aussie Christmas.
Wow. Okay.
Not even in a stratosphere of a consideration because the idea that you can have a barbecue going, have a swim, have people outside. I mean, I've been to some of those awkward winter Christmases where everyone's cooped up in one house and
coughing on everybody.
Got, Uncle Sam or what have you that drives someone crazy and
Uncle Fester. From the
I'm Santa in a swimsuit with a surfboard.
Oh, that's a great image. I love it.
In his thongs, right?
In his thongs.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you like to do in your spare time, if you have any?
I do like to golf a little bit. I played a little golf today, which is I got a bit of sun.
I can feel it. I can see it.
Yeah, and then I'm a woodworker. My dad was a tradesman, so I do like to sort of build things with wood, and I find that's my learning as well because every project's a little different. So I actually just built a 24-foot shed next to my garage because I'd taken over the whole garage with all of my tools and stuff like that. So I build things and
Did you make like cabinets and rocking chairs or just anything that your mind comes?
Yeah, I'll give the little viewers a little. This is sort of one of my projects right here.
Oh, that
nice.
is gorgeous.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That is really nice.
Wow, you did like resins in addition to the wood, did you?
Exactly. Yeah, that was sort of one of my projects. My first dining room table I built, and so I build a bunch of different things like that. So
that's gorgeous.
I find that's for me therapeutic, and it helps me work through process, and it's fun.
How long did it take to build that off and on? I'm sure probably a couple of days, couple of weeks.
No, that one was a couple of months. I mean, that was probably about 40 to 50 hours worth of work. I mean, when you work with resins, you have to have the right climate. So down here in Florida, it's terrible for that. But yeah, so I had the house pumped down to like 65 degrees for about a month or so. I froze my wife out trying to keep everything cool up.
Yeah, wives do not like that sub 68 temperature.
No. So I like to woodwork a lot and play golf, and then it's very Australian. I love to have a barbecue with mates over.
Love it.
Yeah.
So all Aussies, speaking of Barbies and things like that, that's kind of a slang word. All Aussies have great nicknames. What do they call you, Mackers? Or
it's got to be Mac.
Mac, yeah.
Mac.
Scotty Mac.
Scotty Mac.
Scotty Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that every. I mean, I was Belly. Everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it ends in a Y. I mean, I know. Sluicy, Belly.
Yeah, that's right. It's always
It's always Cashy. There's always.
Sometimes they go S, like Peter Lebedev's from Perth.
Yep.
They call him Lebs or Lebsy. Yeah. So sometimes it's an S. That's very British, I guess. But end something with an O or a Y or an IE. That's very Aussie.
Tom is like Tomo. Yeah, I saw Tomo the other day.
Right.
Tomo. Yeah.
The Australians have some great. Lingo. I mean, their slang is really funny. I know a lot of some other words that you don't want to do.
Oh, of course.
I'm not going to mention, but I've heard a few of those that terminology. But you guys have this unbelievable special language. If you look it up even online, a lot of people look it up. But it was just funny. What. Like you said, thongs. That got you in trouble.
That's great.
Because we're thinking like the underwear, and you're thinking like, no.
The flip-flops.
Flip-flops, right. Yeah, so it's funny how those words,
The funny thing with Australian vocabulary and verbiage, as well as things change. As soon as you get round a couple of Aussies again,
Oh, we've got a little freeze.
Yeah, maybe he'll come back here in a second.
Hope so.
Yeah. I had a funny word that what we say and what has a kind of a double entendre here in a second. Yeah, so let's see if we can get Scott back there here in a second. Hopefully Scott will be back. Scott, come back.
I'd hate to talk over him, but at the same time, we probably should fill the dead air space with something. I know I coached a young guy. His first real name was Dunham, Dunham, and everybody called him Dunny. Until he met an Australian, because Dunny means toilet over there, right?
Right.
Oh, I think we've lost. There he is.
He's back. There he is, right there. There we go.
He's back, mate. Thank you.
He's back. All right.
Yeah, you were just saying about how when Aussies get together, the accent comes back.
Oh, the accent comes back thicker than ever, and then a bunch of words come out that you wouldn't say normally in any other conversation, and it's always it's funny when you get a bunch of Aussies together.
I was telling AJ that there's a word that I will say, and I won't say the meaning because I know Scott will probably start laughing here pretty quick. Who are you rooting for? We say who's the team that you're really good, chanting for?
Root.
That is not what it means in Australia.
Root means something different over there.
Like, whoa! I remember asking somebody that, who are you rooting for? They look at me like, what? We don't say that like that. That's not what
they'll say. Who you barracking for, or who you backing, or something, right?
Yeah, who are you going for?
Going for.
Not rooting. We say root, but that's not.
Yeah, like cheering, rooting.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll let people figure that out on their own. So this is all right, let's bring this back to tennis now. This is the third set of the third set. First racket. What was that first racket that you had there in Sydney when you were a little nipper?
Little nipper, very good. You guys.
I know these things.
I had an aluminium Spalding racket. Was my first racket, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And then my actual coach, my first coach, put a wood racket in my hand because she said you have to learn to hit with a wood racket first before you play with a more modern racket, because then you actually learn to feel the ball and hit more classical. Then I had a Wilson Pro Staff as I started to play more, get serious about it. That was probably my first one.
That was the graphite, the black one with the yellow. Yeah. That's a beauty.
Exactly.
Do you still own it? Do you still own any of those? Did you save any of them?
No, I haven't. Just over the years of travel and moving around, I'm sure they're probably, in the garage full of stuff Mum's kept for my brother and I. hoarded over the years, but just through a lot of travel and around the country and the world, it's they've sort of not with me.
Do your parents, mom, still live at the same house that you grew up in Sydney?
No, so my parents are actually from New Zealand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they met in Australia, and I had my brother and I in Australia, and we lived there. And once they figured out that my brother lives in Cincinnati, that we weren't coming back, and they retired, they moved back to New Zealand.
I see.
And so, so I actually have dual passports. I have an Australian and a New Zealand passport. So in the rugby, I was always on the winning side.
Always.
I never lost,
Right.
which just drove my friends mad because they're like, you got to pick.
No.
I was like, I'll pick whoever the winner is.
Yeah,
right.
that's my team.
Right. I can go for New Zealand. I can go for Oz. Either one.
Yeah. So they were just over here for about 6 weeks, and so down here in Florida. Then they've just headed back, and my wife and I got to head over, spend some time with them at Christmas. So New Zealand's a beautiful country. So
Oh man, what we've seen of it on the internet. We had a couple people go over. They said, "Man, that was really pretty." Unfortunately, had the earthquake over. Was it Christchurch that got
Christchurch? Yeah,
got smacked around? Is it back together now? Or is
it's hit or miss. I mean, also being a small island. COVID really knocked it around because it was pretty much closed down as a country for a couple of years. So it's going to find its legs, but it's a beautiful, beautiful country.
Yeah. So indoor tennis or outdoor tennis?
I love indoors. I'd love to play some on your courts right there.
Yeah.
I mean, especially as a teaching professional, it was great to have climate controlled, and it was easier to teach 10 hours indoors than it was to teach 10 hours outdoors.
Yeah, it's definitely good for the skin to be in there. Yeah.
I had 2 summers in San Antonio. I looked just like the logo. Basically, I was that color, and I was like, holy smokes, that was dark. It peeled the paint on my Jeep. This was in the late 80s. I was at a club in San Antonio. I was like, whoa, man, I started hanging around indoor courts again because I'm like you. I like that indoor environment, that consistent climate control, right? Uh-oh, did we lose him again?
He looks frozen.
He looks frozen.
Oh, bummer.
Well, we'll keep. But I did like indoor tennis. I've always been around. I know you've been in and out of indoor environments.
Oh yeah, indoor, outdoor. I mean, I on a good day I prefer outdoor, but I totally get it.
I think he's back. There we go.
He is back.
There we go.
Good.
That Texas sun is nothing to mess around with.
No.
Because the day just gets hotter in Texas. It's like 5.
He is correct. It does get hotter. He's back. There he is.
Yeah, you're right. It could be 97 degrees, and maybe the high was 100, but you go to bed and it's still 97.
Right.
Yep.
So, most embarrassing moment in tennis. Do you have an embarrassing moment like?
Yes. One that sort of stands out. Not sure if it was the most, but it was one that was embarrassing when I was in France. We hitchhiked to a tournament, and we got in at like 2:00 in the morning, found the tennis center, went around. We were living in a tent. So my mate and I, and so we put the tent up in the middle of the night, and we had some dirty laundry. So we took some rackets that had a busted racket and tied it from the tent to a tree and sort of put all our dirty washing that had been in the bag out there. And I got woken up by my mate in the morning. We didn't realize there was these trees backed onto the stadium court of the tennis center we were at. So up in the stadium, there was a bunch of all these Frenchmen and women and kids sort of looking down, and we had our tent with all our dirty laundry out there. And and they were they're making fun of us, and it was, where are they going to... Bonjour, je suis Australien. Comment ça va?
Nous sommes Australiens.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I'd had that many people to watch one of my tennis matches ever in my life. Hundreds of people there just sort of poking and prodding, and
that's funny.
That's a classic story. I'm sure.
That's awesome.
It's like merci beaucoup. Favorite tournament? Where's your favorite tournament, and why? It could be a local one that you played in, or maybe one of the slams. What's your favorite? And hopefully he'll be back in a second, right? Answer that question.
I bet he will.
Yeah. It seems like the internet connection is a little.
It's a little spotty. Maybe the storms. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there he is. Okay.
Oh yeah. So we're asking favorite tournament, Scott.
What's your favorite tournament?
I love Indian Wells in Cincinnati.
Oh, really?
Especially, Cincinnati, because it was pretty intimate. I mean, it's grown over the years, but you could really get up close with a lot of the players.
And your brother lives there.
Right. So you have a place to stay, right? You'd have to stay in the tent like you did in France.
That's right. A close line.
Right.
That is hilarious. I can just see the people looking down their noses.
What are these guys doing? These crazy Aussie guys. Right.
So that's
Exactly.
and so cool that and your brother lives in Cincinnati, so you're sort of a local in a way, right? All right, we may have to.
There.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite player? Favorite tennis player?
I loved watching Patrick Rafter as a kid.
Yeah.
I loved his intensity. With it, but then also as an ambassador of the game, he was just a great guy on and off the court and treated everyone the same. He was he was super fun and exciting to watch.
I've never heard anybody say a bad word about Patrick. I mean, he seems like just a really nice individual. Don't know him. Yep. Yeah.
Met him a couple of times and just a great person.
Yeah, I was standing at the Crown Hotel when we were staying in Melbourne, and I was fumbling around for my key because you couldn't get on the elevator unless you had key to your room. You can't get up the elevator. And he goes, "You okay, mate?" And I was like, "What's up?" And I saw that little white part, that little white tuck, and I go,
little skunk zone he's got in his hair. Yeah,
he was there with his kids, and so I talked to him on the way up. I go, "Hey, did you guys get out there and hit on the courts?" And they go, yeah.
Wow.
He was very nice, but just for that moment right there. All right, last two questions. We're going to circle this back around because I know we're closing on the 11 o'clock time frame down in your neck of the woods. If you wouldn't have been involved in sports like you are, what would you be doing right now? Hopefully he'll come back. It's a big question. It's
a big one, yeah. If you weren't involved in sports, what would you be doing
right now? Yeah.
There
we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'm not sure. I never really charted a course out or thought of doing anything different. I may have ended up in a trade because my dad was a tradesman, so I followed a lot of things in his footsteps. But I think the fun thing of my journey is
well, if the tennis thing doesn't work out, I want him to make me that table.
Right, that was a great table.
I love one of those.
I was like, wow, he could really. I mean, that's his other. I think
the woodworking, such a passion and a skill.
I think he'd be a great woodsman, right?
Oh,
he'd be like Woody, but they could call him Woody. The Woodies.
Woody.
He could be one of the Woodies. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay, back. There we go. And
I think I don't know what I would have chosen outside of tennis, but I think I've been fortunate to have many.
Sorry, mates at home. We're working through a technical difficulty. It must have something to do with the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I don't think it's here, even though we've had some weather up here. It could just be an interference in the feed down there in Florida.
We always have a few things going on. We were thinking he's back. You could be like one of the Woodies. You do such really nice job with woodworking. That might be your other profession if you didn't choose to be involved in like Cliff Drysdale.
Yeah, if tennis management doesn't work out, I want you to make me that table, that brilliant dining table you have.
I can definitely do that. I'm actually very good friends with Mark Woodford, so I'll pass that message on to him.
That is a high compliment there, Woody.
Yeah, you can be one of the Woodies.
Yeah, the third Woody, like the fifth Beatle, the third Woody.
Right, there you go. All right, so last question. This is always the creme de la creme, climb to the top. I don't know, whatever I'm saying. If you were the commissioner of the great game and you were entrusted to change something of the great game, maybe not change something. It could be amateur tennis, professional tennis, recreational tennis like what you guys are involved in. Is there something that you would change or just leave the great game well enough alone?
I think there's so many great things happening in the game. I think our big mission is always to continue to put more education and help bring more people into the game, and with more providers and more people teaching tennis, you tend to grow tennis. And I think you've got to continue to always keep things simple and keep them at the grassroots and funnel resources, energy, efforts into the grassroots and train professionals more. I mean, continue to educate them so that they're the bandwidth of growing the game. And when you have well-balanced programs and play and options at clubs, I think then everything figures itself out.
Well put. We are so passionate about that. Craig has been a conference chair and a past president at USPTA. I'm the current education chair. And you're not just speaking to the choir. I hope you're speaking to everybody, emphasizing the importance of education in our profession. It's just tremendous. I remember being so horribly disappointed 6 years ago. I was 47, and I heard that the average age of the average tennis professional is 47. And then when I was 48, it was 48. And I would love to think that with more education, like you said, bandwidth, they're the bandwidth. I don't want to be the average age at 53 of the tennis professional. I want it to be 30-something, 40-something, something where it can trend downward and people see how glorious racket sports are and the profession or the management side of it.
Yeah, and I think the more we can expose the younger generation to learn.
Apologies for the interruption there, everybody. Yeah, so younger generations, getting
involved on the court, off the court, learning different skills and expanding their knowledge set, I think will continue to get us into a better spot because, all those young pros there, the next generation, they're going to sort of hold the torch for the next 20 years. And I think that's where we're big proponents of trying to.
That is a good change. And it's, I feel like it's something we're all sort of doing.
Yep. Yeah,
that's a great change. Thank you for that response.
Yeah.
And my goodness, thank you for spending a couple hours with us tonight.
Yeah.
We feel richer for it. I know we had a good time. I hope you had a few laughs and enjoyed it too.
No, it's been fantastic. And congrats on everything you guys are doing.
Scott, thank you. It's so kind of you. Thank you. We love doing it, and we love being in touch with remarkable people like you, industry leaders. So thank you. We hope you'll consider joining us another night. And maybe we'll hit a different platform. We'll hit Instagram on Wednesday night. So do keep in touch.
Yeah. And also tell everybody how they can get in touch with you at Cliff Drysdale Tennis. Just real fast.
You can always get a hold of us at Cliff Drysdale Tennis. You can look up cliffdrysdale.com. And then also I'm always available. I'm reachable by email, s.mcculloch, MCCULLOCH at cliffdrysdale.com. And I'm sure you guys can send out some of the contact information. And
we will.
If there's any way that
we'll throw a link at the bottom for Scotty Mack.
Right. Yeah, no, we've had a great time, man. It's been awesome. I mean, a couple hours of quality time here at the Net Podcast. So, Scott, Sydney, Australia's favorite son, Scott McCulloch, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, man. Good night. Oh, and send us your address. We want to send you a little swag bag, and we'll talk soon, Scotty.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
See you.
What a sweet guy. That was really fun.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Very interesting to I always like the Australians. They have such a way with words, and they just seem to have such a conviviality for life.
They
right?
do. They know Kiwis, too. And he's been raised by double Kiwis. Yeah. So I always enjoy them. Well,
let's cue up the music for old Jimmy Campbell right here.
James Scott Campbell.
Yep. So let's see what we got here going. Everybody. everybody. Thanks for listening to Season 1, Episode 128 of At the Net Podcast. Join us in 3 weeks. We're off actually for 3 weeks. We've got next week we're going to be in New Braunfels. The week after I was supposed to be down at USPTA, and we might come back on that Sunday night, but we'll be back in 3 weeks on the 28th. That would be with Chadwick Bird and Paul Allen of Tennis Ventures. That should be a really interesting. We've never had a travel person that's been on the podcast, so this will be an interesting conversation with Chadwick and Paul about what they do with Tennis Ventures. So join us on September 28th, I believe, for At the Net Podcast. Also, join us on Wednesday evenings, as AJ was talking about. We do a little thing called tennis shorts.
We get to find out what's in Craig Bell's tennis shorts.
Always nothing, as I say. There's not a whole lot going on there. And lastly, be sure to like and follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and our other social media outlets. Plus, tell a friend or friends, as hopefully your peeps will like what we do, and we want to know, who the peeps are. And
that was a nice contemporary way of saying, like, share, subscribe. You know what to do.
Right.
And we will see you Wednesday night at the Net, everybody.
And that's the tennis news as it
seems to us.
Good night from Dallas, Texas, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.